Welcome to Trestle Tactics, a tips from Trestle short. We wanted to know what's going to make our podcasts more valuable to you. And the answers were simple. You want easy to implement tactics and strategies that will let you create an outstanding experience around your senior living food and hospitality programming. So let's dive in right now on today's Trestle Tactics. Today on Trestle Tactics, we're going to talk about the transition for chefs from restaurants to retirement communities. How do you adjust to senior living? Well, I've got 4 tips and tricks that I want to share that I've seen over the course of my career that have made many a chef greatly successful as they come from restaurants and the hospitality side of the industry into senior living. That first tactic I want to talk about is managing from the heart. One of the most important things you can do is change the way you approach management inside the senior living community. When you're in a kitchen, in a restaurant or a hotel, it really is go, go, go. It's all about the grind. It's all about let's make it happen. Let's make a profit. But when you get into senior living, you got to let a little bit of that go. You still got to make it happen. And you still want to try and be successful when you're managing your profits and your expenses. But you've got to be more mindful when you're dealing with a lot of different things. Remember, you're dealing with residents who live there every day. You're dealing with employees that may not be the traditional cooks and servers that come from the hospitality industry. What you really need to do is just embrace this idea of developing the softer skills of management, being a better listener, looking more towards how can you improve your team? How can I create more value for them? How can I create more value for my teammates with me? You do these things every day in restaurants and hotels, but the emphasis is a little bit different in senior living because we're an industry of people serving people in a way that is different. I talk about this all the time. So learning to manage more from the heart, being more open to share about you and what makes you tick, and creating those longer term relationships, and really realizing it's not transactional anymore. When you move into a senior living community management role, it's about building relationships, whether it's with vendors, employees, family members, residents, other directors, or department heads. So you've got to learn to use those soft skills more and really work towards managing from the heart to be successful. Tactic number 2, learn your senior living numbers. You can't be a chef out in the real world without understanding profit and loss and food cost percentages and labor, all of the things that go into a successful and profitable operation. There are a lot of similarities when it comes to senior living in managing those, but there are a lot of different numbers you have to understand, especially things like a PRD and meal counts and diet counts and all of the different things that you've got to learn and understand to be successful. Even when you're looking at things like event planning and margins, how do you go about better managing those things? How do you build your order guide so that you get the right tools and the right pieces of the puzzle in place for your inventory? All of these things become a little bit more critical because in a restaurant or a food service operation that's for profit, you don't necessarily have the opportunity in the senior living community to raise a price to make up the difference. So you really have to understand that even though we preach a P&L mindset in senior living, you still are expected to manage expenses. That's just really the way our industry is set up. So it's really important that you, as a new chef in senior living, dive in and get a better handle on things like a per resident day and your meal counts and labor hours versus labor dollars and all those sorts of numbers and facts and KPIs that'll set you apart when managing senior living. Tactic number 3, implement your systems for long-term success. One of the things that a lot of chefs that transition from restaurants and hotels struggle with is when they get into a senior living operation, especially if it's a smaller operator. Those kitchens are just not usually set up with systems. So one of the things that we work with our customers on is having the right tools and processes and procedures in place to be successful. But senior living communities around the country, a lot of times, they say, here, chef, here's the keys. Go do your thing. You know what you do. You know you're successful. You're the expert. Go do it. But but know that the foundation of any great operation is going to be having the right tools and systems in place to be successful. Do you have check-in guides? Do you have a checklist for service staff? What about kitchen staff checklists? Do you have a line checklist? You have cleaning lists, temperature logs. These all sound very basic and very elemental, But to run this kitchen and to run it successfully as a senior living chef, you got to know these systems well, and you got to know how important they are for not just you, but for your entire staff and anyone in the community that may help you. There are definitely those tools in restaurants and hotels, but these things have to be a primary focus for you. It's all about streamlining and being efficient. And a lot of times you're going to see in senior living when you first walk in, that's not the case. So if you don't have the right systems in your back pocket, find someone who can help you or get online, find the tools, whatever it takes. But you need to get set up with the right systems before you get in too far. That way you can have a repeatable product every single time. Our fourth tactic, this one's pretty obvious to me, but you've got to embrace your residents. One of the things that I've seen with chefs over and over again is this kind of, I want to be in the back of the house. I'm a chef. The kitchen is where I'm comfortable. Somebody else takes care of the front house and takes care of the dining room. Well, in senior living, typically it's that chef manager or that executive chef that is the department leader. And that's something that you have to embrace as you come into senior living and start managing your first retirement community. You've got to embrace those residents. They're your customers. You have to understand their wants and their needs and their preferences. You have to understand that they're going to get upset, but they still want you to be successful. They want you there. It's about building those relationships with the residents and getting the right feedback from them. They'll tell you how to be successful in the community. It's the one thing I find with chefs is when they do it and do it well, not only does the job become easier to do because they're getting the right feedback from residents, but the job becomes way more enjoyable because it's not just about that work-life balance of, hey, I get to be home by 8 in the evening. It's also about bringing value and purpose to the work you do, as opposed to just grinding out covers every day in a restaurant or a hotel. The residents want you to be there. They know you're providing an invaluable service to them, and your success is the success of the community and their health and well-being. So, those are our 4 tips and tricks for you as you transition from hospitality and restaurant chef to senior living community chef. We hope you enjoyed this episode of Trestle Tactics. Be sure to like and subscribe on any of our channels, YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts, or anywhere you listen to us. Also, be sure to follow us on any of your social media channels at Tips from Trestle. Well, thanks for joining us on this episode of Trestle Tactics.